Is the horse that's being ridden by the guy in the yellow, is that horse really that much better than the other one? Well, he's just a nose better. Well, that said, if you look at the earnings, now this is not Melbourne Cup. Actually, these are Kentucky Derby earnings. I just noticed the Melbourne Cup on the slide this morning, but the Melbourne Cup would be the same. So even a small difference to come in first, it can be huge to your sales. So small things do matter. And what we're going to be doing today is looking at a sales process, and I'm taking the 50,000 foot view approach. And so what I'm going to do is just show you a sales process, and it doesn't matter whether you use the sales process I'm about to show you, whether you use spin selling, or if you have your own. My recommendation is just have something, have a sales process. So as you're getting with clients, getting with prospects, you know where you are in that sales process and you could follow that. And so what I'm going to be showing you today really are more talking points to spark some of the conversation. And what I hope to spark is I want you to put an idea in your head, and you may get one or two tidbits and you think, oh, I never thought about that. And take this information and put it into your objectives, create a strategy, and then use the tactics. We're going to get very specific, although once again, with the time I have, I don't have time to get very specific. Now, Coach Dennis is next. He is going to get more specific, talking about customer care. I'm looking at the 50,000 foot view. And let's start off with a doctor. If you think about your business and what do you sell, you're all doctors, whether you're doctors, as I look at some of the people on here, you're doctors of insurance, you're doctors of good water, you're doctors of internet skills. And so let's begin to create this sales process. What the good doctors do, first of all, they're going to identify who they want to do business with. And you think, well, doctors really don't do that. Well, once they're established, they don't. Once you're flying at 35,000 feet, they come to you. But when you're first getting started, you do need to go and find those clients, identify who you want to do business with, and then you need to attract them. You need to get them into your office. You need to get their business, have them listen, get your foot in the door. And so once you are in the door, what the good doctors would do, first thing they're going to say is they're going to try to understand you. And by understanding, so Art, your shoulder hurts. So if you came into my office and if I'm the doctor, I'm not going to give you a prescription. I'm going to diagnose what's the problem first. And so what the good doctors would do is, Art, your shoulder hurts. How long has it been hurting? When did it start hurting? Does it hurt more in the day or at night? Scale of 1 to 10, what is your pain? And I'm going to ask those probing questions. And it seems so basic, so simple. However, so many salespeople do not do this. They fail to fully understand. And then once you fully understand, well, Art, based on what you just told me, it sounds like I think you have a muscle strain. And so I could help you with that, Art. I have a solution here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to prescribe first to get you a sling and then some muscle relaxers, and you're going to have to keep it immobilized for a couple weeks. Okay, now we've done that. We've completely understand the situation, the problems, and we've presented what the solution is, and then the close comes. And a lot of people say the close is so hard, I can't do the close. The close is really the easiest part if you've done a good job with everything else. If you've done a good job understanding what their issues are and then presenting an ideal solution. So Art, here's the prescription, and then you just pause. Do you want the prescription? And not many patients are going to say, no, I'm just going to live with the pain. I'm okay. And they're going to say, yeah, give it to me. I really want it. You've piqued my interest. I have to have it. So the close could be something as easy. Think about your doctors. They're going to say, do you want me to send your prescription to CVS or Walgreens? Do you want the prescription within an hour or by the end of the day? And so that's as easy as a close is. And finally, a lot of people stop there. But what do the good doctors do? The best doctors, they're going to call you the next day. They're going to enhance the relationship. So I'm just calling to check up. Art, did those muscle relaxers hurt? How is your arm feeling or your shoulder feeling right now? So that's a sales process. And if you think of yourselves as the doctors in your own field and put that terminology, that verbiage to it, it's going to make a huge difference, because what a lot of people do, have you seen this guy before? He looks like a car salesman. And what they do not do is they fail to understand what you want and what your needs are. And then I guarantee you, they're not going to enhance the relationship at all. They just want to make the sale, make the commission, poof, they're gone. And there's a statistic, 86% of people leave the current suppliers because they're not feeling the love. So that means 86% plus of the people are not enhancing the relationship after the close. And that's, as I mentioned, that could be as easy as just making a phone call, just checking to see how things are going. And I have the sleazy car salesman, and I hate to, I don't want to put anything bad on car salesmen. It's just this kind of a reputation, but salespeople have that reputation as well. Yeah, I'm looking for a laptop, so I go into a reputable store. Can I help you, sir? Yes, I'm looking for a laptop. Your timing is perfect. We have new laptops over here. I mean, this is a beautiful machine. It's fantastic. Everybody's buying it. You need this one. Well, you didn't even ask me what I'm going to use my laptop for yet. And what kind of screen am I interested in? Big or small? And what kind of memory do I need? You don't even understand what I need. And this salesperson, although he looked a lot nicer than this guy, he just tried to present that with me, and he tried to close me. Now, we're going to talk, just mention DISC personality assessment. And there's DISC behavioral assessment. And if someone is what we call a high S, a high steadiness, and you try to push them into the close without understanding, they're going to turn you off so fast and back off, big boy. I'm not ready for this. Forget it. I'm out of here. So you could scare people off if you fail to understand. All right. So now let's look at the sales process and let's talk about some of these talking points. And I'm going to put the first two up: identify, attract. And if you can, please take yourself off mute. I'd like for you to ask questions if you have any of the points. And then what I'd really love to do is to add to some of these points. This is not these are not all the points that should be there. So I'm looking for your input as to what we can add to this. And you're going to see some in highlighting, because as I started to make this slide, I started highlighting, ooh, this is really important. Let me highlight this. Let me highlight this. And I got looking and I thought, shoot, they're all important. They should all be highlighted. But I left them in there. So some are highlighted. I think they're critically important, but there are a lot of others that aren't highlighted that are still critically important. I just kept the highlights in for color right now. So here are the first two. And if we look at these, in fact, it was one of the questions at the beginning: what are better ways that I can prospect? And so if you can take yourself off mute, ask a question, or let's add to the list, whether it's identify or attract.
Are you asking, like, this is Doug again, are you asking, like, you're thinking of ideas of how you can identify more, or what's,
Right.
I guess I'm a little confused on what your question is.
Yes, you know, my question is, first of all, if you have any questions about one of these points, I'd love to clarify.
Oh, like internet, oh, you're saying like, oh, like internet research. Okay, I see what you're saying.
And secondly, what am I missing here? What is this list missing? What could be better on it? If you look at attract, there's mental preparation for success. And the reason I'm not going into detail, because each one of these points we could spend an hour on. There's so much that goes into mental preparation for success, for value propositions. For DISC, we could easily spend a couple hours. So that's why we're doing the 50,000 foot view here right now.
Oh, you cover like associations or like Zoom meetings like this, like, so you're identifying maybe potential clients. You might have like maybe charity organizations or other I guess you have social media, but not like social events. Maybe it's something that you really enjoy doing so that you can just build rapport. So maybe at that point you're
I,
identifying some
I,
things.
I love that social, yeah, every service organizations, charity organizations, that's great. That should be up here. What else?
Hey, Mark, it's Art Locke. Just a thought just about who is my ideal client? And I don't want to just go into the market willy-nilly. I should have a very, very clear idea of the kind of client I really want to attract.
Perfect. Who's my ideal client? That's going on the list here. How about number 2? For the attract, we talked about you want to establish rapport, the education-based marketing. What that means is I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just trying to educate you. And if I become the expert in my field of business, then people want to come to me. For example, Sean, I see you on, and if you're talking about the fresh, clean, outstanding water and what it could mean to the body, then you become the expert. It's education-based marketing. What else should be on this list? And there is some crossover from one to another. There is some, whether it's identify, attract, understand. Okay, let's look at the next 2. I talked about the importance of understanding and really digging deep. The 5 why analysis. Keep asking why. That's interesting. Tell me, why do you do that? And why? You be that 2-year-old that keeps asking their parent, why do you do that?
Yeah, I think their goal is you're trying to get to their pain. I mean, so that then they'll recognize that they need your services. So you're sort of trying to lead them to say, oh, wait, I think you can help me out.
Yeah, very good. So we're looking for their pain, and actually we're pointing it out, just like you said, Doug. We want them to visualize it. We want them to emotionalize it too. How does that make you feel? You know, with your insurance, I'm looking at Hugh now. You have to have insurance. Well, how would your customer feel if something happened to you and your loved ones, if you don't have the insurance, the proper coverage? How would that make you feel? So you're trying to get them to visualize and emotionalize it, put some emotion into it.
You might have, under that understand, you might have, like in our business, we're in IT services, so you might have actually some tool sets, like you don't have a line item that you might be able to install something or give something to them to identify some other areas to help you basically present a proposal later. But you might like some scanning or something like that might be able to add to your list, like a tool for that industry.
Tool sets, I like it.
Like a realtor would probably have like a tax or how much prices are for that area, stuff like that. They probably have some type of proprietary tool or industry's tool.
Yes, good, thank you.
And Mark, I feel like the more we understand who we want to work with, the easier it is to attract them. So isn't it really about having our clients pursue us to buy our product or service versus us selling to them?
Exactly. No, you're very true. And in fact, we don't really sell to anybody. We just present solutions out there. They're buying. We're not trying to sell to anyone. We're just saying, if you have this pain, and once again, the doctor's not trying to sell you on taking the medication, the painkillers, muscle relaxers. The doctor is just saying, well, here's the situation, the pain you're feeling. I have a solution here. And it really is just getting them to blending, getting them to see that they do have this need and you can ease their pain. Okay, how about these? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just add one more thing, Mark. What about driving forces? Like the difference between pulling somebody out of pain so that they can exist and get up and go to work, or getting them out of pain and in shape for football might be 2 different things. So understanding what's the driving force, understanding, what's their end result might help with the presentation layer.
Yeah, no, that's great. Very good. And I talk about how's your family going to feel if you don't have coverage? That's the negative. And thank you, Dennis. There is a positive side. You know, I want to be, and it's back to Tiger Woods. I want to be the best that I can be. If you have a product that can help me get to that level to make me the best that I can be, yeah, I want some of that. How about the last two classifications here, the close and then enhancing the relationship? What else can we do? What questions do you have? You know, the one thing I have there, overcoming all objections. And first of all, when people hear, and it was in present as well, when you hear objections, you think, oh my gosh, I hate objections. Something's not right. Actually, the best salespeople typically have twice as many objections. Objections are great. Don't be afraid of objections because it means you're still in the game. The objection could just be a lack of understanding. So it just means I need to explain something better. I need to explain the value for the price. I need to explain what my product does. So objections are our friends.
Mm-hmm. Well, the objections are just an opportunity to answer their questions better and understand why they're even talking to you even better.
Yes, exactly. Let me ask you this, because here in number 5, you see third-party testimonials, and any testimonial you have. Now, in your business, do you have testimonials? Now, anyone could get 2 or 3 testimonials. You got somebody who says, oh, these guys are great. It's just like a resume. I could get 2 or 3 good references. But can you get 30 or 40 great testimonials, whether it's in writing or whether it's online? You get 30 or 40, then it becomes in the legal terms. And in fact, we do have an attorney on the line here. Where is he? Yep, there you are, Kurt. You're still on. So in the legal world, if you get 30 or 40 testimonials, it becomes what's called a preponderance of evidence. And boy, oh boy, is that really impressive. If you take that to a client, they start looking through all these references or the testimonials. And this is fantastic. You really have to have a fantastic product. You have to be fantastic at what you do. Look at all these testimonials. So it is a very underutilized, very powerful tool. Okay,
So,
good. Name.
Mark, one of the things that I put in the chat is WIIFM, if anybody's familiar with that.
What's in it for me?
That's
I'm
exactly
sorry?
right, Rex. What's in it for me? And if you put yourself in your client's shoes or the people that you want to do business with, then you want to seek you out to buy your product or service, always be thinking about what's in it for them. And that's the way you need to present yourself. And Mark, I feel like your circle here, your circle of 6, if you're not quite sure where to go in the spot that you're in, you can actually go back a cycle, right? Or back to the right to look in the space. Do I understand? Well, maybe I'm not ready to present yet, right? Or if I'm ready to close, but I have not yet understood what it is that I need to present, then I can go back 2 cycles, right?
Yes, thank you, Tricia. Exactly. So if I'm trying to close and then they ask an objection, I need to do a better job understanding. Yeah, you're exactly right. Thank you. And if
So
I
I
could,
would-
well,
If
go
I can
ahead.
offer, in the enhance phase, one of the things I think is very powerful is how you onboard your customer. Beyond just thanking them and reinforcing their decision, can you educate them about the best way to use your company, use your services when you kick off the relationship?
Yeah.
Doug, I don't know if you're available, but I know Doug in his IT services company, he does an amazing job of new customer onboarding. Doug, you want to just share with the group some of the things you do?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so we have our sales process written down. If you go to prototypeit.net/sales, that's basically the sales process. But I share that with our clients and tell them this is what the workflow is going to be. But then we'll have an onboarding call, and then you just basically want to set up a communication plan. So you have like these little checklists that you go through. Now it's a little bit easier in our space because most of us are technical, so they're process-oriented people that you're working with, but you also have to have the people that are people, sometimes doing other roles as well. So sometimes you could have two technical people. So you actually, we combine the two. So we actually have a project manager who's customer-centric oriented, and then we have someone who's technical, is trying to get the tasks done. But there's two different roles, but at the end of the day, they're all responsible to onboard that client. So that's like maybe like when we're onboarding a client, and then you have to do constantly follow up and stuff like that, making sure you're closing your tickets. Is that what you're referring to, Art?
Well, I'm thinking too, is some of the videos you do, and just
Okay.
because anytime a customer comes into a new relationship, they've bought you and bought your services, and in many cases, many of us have a lot more we can do for clients, right? Or we want to make sure they really know how to take advantage of everything we could do for them. But if we don't educate them about that at this point in the sales process, we may not be totally serving their needs.
You're right. And I think that's where sometimes even where we even fall down, sometimes you have these great tools, your great things that you've created, but then one person might not be using it. And if you're not following up with that team member, then you're like, man, we've invested all this time and money on this process. Why aren't you using it? Like, what's wrong with it? And sometimes like some of these videos that you mentioned is like, oh, you know what? On the last onboarding, I don't remember actually them sending that video about the client relationship manager and their role. And then they're like explaining it to them. And I'm like, and then when you go back and you do your bag lunch, whatever, your sort of your post review, it's like, oh yeah, you're right. I totally forgot about that step. We added it last year, but I forgot to send that CRM video. Or maybe it's something, maybe they don't like something about it, but I think it's just having that communication of saying, well, why aren't you sending it? Well, I don't really like it because it has a past employee in it and they're talking about the company and they're not here anymore. Okay, great. Let's reshoot it. Like, so have that conversation is something to do. And you try to set the standard too. So when I'm selling, I'm trying to go through that fundamental so they can copy me. I'll copy my team on sometimes sales approaches that I take. And I say, I'm just copying you just so you can see what I'm doing. So you can tell me if I'm doing it wrong, because maybe the process changed. And me being the owner, maybe the sales team has a whole new process. They're like, oh, Doug, we don't do it like that anymore. I'm like, oh, okay, great. Well, what are you guys doing now? And so it constantly evolves on your approach.
Good. No, thank you, Doug. I'm going to close this out so we give Dennis some time. Just one other thing, if you are in a B2B business, a lot of you are B2C, just going on joint calls with your customer can go so far. I mean, it's tremendous idea if you're B2B. And so once again, nothing earth-shattering here. One or 2 points may have jumped out. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. What I want you to do is take this, though, and put it into your strategic plan and think about your objectives and then come up with some tactics and really put this into use. So with that, I'd like to thank you, and I'm going to turn it back to you, Tricia.
Great. Thank you, Mark. That was awesome. Thank you for sharing. And thank you to everyone who's participating and sharing ideas here. That's really the point of having this type of format, is so that we can all share with each other. The interesting thing is the conversation was pushing into what Dennis is actually going to talk to us about, which is customer expectations, right? And how we choose to delight our customers. And I heard Mark say 86% of clients can choose or do choose to leave a service to go somewhere else. So how do we keep that from happening? And it really is in that follow-up. It really is taking care of those customers, and it really is paying extra special attention to those clients that we want to attract and keep on board. So with that, Mark, I would first ask you to put your contact information into the chat window, please, so that if anybody has questions or wants to follow up with you on your presentation, they have easy access. And Dennis, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you very much, Tricia, and thank you, Mark, for a great overview on the sales process. So as I said, I'm going to talk about first-class customer care, and those customers who get first-class exceptional service, they're going to be deeply loyal. They're going to be amazing sources of referral. They are going to, your ultimate objective is to improve the position on your customer's value chain, right? And so the 4 things that I'm going to introduce to you and talk to you about are the critical the critical success determinant, the importance of expectations, the 4 levels of customer satisfaction, and then something called being elite. And what this is all designed to do, right, is to take you from being a transactional vendor to more of a strategic partner, because those are the people that are going to give you the referrals. Those are the people that are going to enter into joint ventures and be amazingly loyal and really be the fuel that drives your sales engine. So that critical success determinant, sales, as I said, are the engine that drives your business, but customer satisfaction, that's your fuel. And so your ability to satisfy your customer that's ultimately the determinant of your success. You need to feed that engine, right? So let's talk for a second about expectations. So the importance of expectations. The worst enemy of any relationship is an unfulfilled expectation. If someone expects something of you and you fail to deliver on that, that's going to impact that relationship. So whether it's a spouse, an employee, or a customer, right? It all begins, and at times it could end with an expectation. So displeasure is grounded in the failure to meet an expectation, or more importantly, sometimes the failure to recognize an expectation. Often that failure to recognize an expectation, that's ultimately the trigger, right? We don't intentionally fail to meet expectations. We deliver what we believe the customer expects of us. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in business, right? But what if there's an implied expectation? What if there's an unwritten expectation or an unspoken expectation, something that you're unaware of, some underlying circumstance, something that might, impact the request to fulfillment process that you're trying to engage in and go through? The impact of failing to meet that expectation, it could be as little as a little bit of minor temporary friction, or as was talked about before, 80%, 86%, they could leave, right? They could end the relationship. So establishing those expectations up front, understanding them, understanding how they change are key and critical to delighting the customer, keeping them loyal, and keeping them, in your sales process, keeping them in your sales engine as active participants, right? So let's try to demonstrate that. So in keeping with fuel and engines, let's say that we're buying a sports car, right? And that's, for some of us, I collect different cars and vehicles. Anything with an engine I like to keep. I've got a driveway full of them. And so this is really, really important to me. So if I'm going to go buy a sports car, I'm going to lay out my expectations. The first is it has to be used. I can't stand anything that depreciates. You drive it off the lot and all of a sudden it's worth, a third less than it was when you took it off the showroom floor. So I don't really, I'm not into the new cars. So it's got to be used. Second, it's got to be a 2-seater. No self-respecting auto enthusiast would call something a sports car that has more than 2 seats. Has to be a 2-seater. Absolutely a requirement. It has to be red. Who drives around a sports car in any other color but red? Not me. So there's my requirement. My expectation, especially since it's used, it has to have custom wheels. Who drives around with factory rims or something with the factory logo on it? It's got to be custom wheels. That's my expectation. That's what I need. Got to be high performance, of course. Wouldn't be a sports car unless it was high performance. And it has to be race ready. Got to be able to take it to the track. Got to be able to run it around the track. Got to be able to show it off to my friends and other people that are enthusiasts that have sports cars. And it has to start with an F. It's just another one of my expectations. This used car with custom wheels, 2-seater, red, high performance, it's got to start with an F. There it is. That's my Ferrari. Isn't it amazing? Fits all the criteria. Starts with an F, used, race ready, 2-seater. Those are aftermarket rims, clearly high performance. But there's a Fiero. Fits all the criteria. But did it meet the expectation? Did it did it fail to recognize an expectation? In my mind, it did, but it fits all the criteria, right? There were some unspoken, implied requirements or expectations that were embedded into the fact that I wanted to get a sports car, that I wanted to buy a sports car. And if you think through this, right, your definition of good, your definition of or your interpretation of expectations could be completely different, right or wrong. And so how do you get underneath the covers? How do you get behind the motivations? And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But before we get into that, you know, becoming elite and getting behind the expectations and understanding really what's the difference between a Ferrari and a Fiero, it's important to talk a little bit about the 4 levels of customer satisfaction. So as business owners, business leaders, employees, no matter where we fit in the value chain, level 1 is just meeting customer expectations. This is the price of admission, right? This is where you ultimately stay in business, whether it's a lot of business or a little business. If you can't simply meet customer requirements, you're not going to go any further. Now, at this level, there's no loyalty. The customer will leave at the drop of a hat. They'll get they get the product or service from someone else and won't even really look back or consider why they might go somewhere else. It's just you're meeting the minimum expectations. Second is exceeding the customer expectations. This is surprising them with something. They give the fast and friendly service. You follow it up with a phone call, make sure everything's all right. You know, you're continually looking for ways to go above their expectations or just do a bit better than maybe, you know, the next step in your competition, or knowing what the alternate providers are and how you can exceed what those other providers are doing. Level 3 is actually delighting your customers. Now, this is when you bring a smile to their face, and this is when the sales process results in something personal. It could be a kind gesture. It could be some level of personalization. It could be something that, you know, really goes well above and beyond what your competitors might do. But this is when you get personal. When you're delighting your customers, you're the prompting of a smile on their face as a result of your product or service being delivered. And then ultimately, this is, you know, level 4. This is the point of amazement. This is where you get, I think, you know, Mark, when he put up the chart with all the testimonials, right, and the preponderance of the evidence, as you said, that's the result of customer amazement. There's a lot of testimonials. There's clearly, you know, customer experience and getting deep into what are their values, what are their drivers, what's important to their business. And you're finding things and looking for things that potentially they didn't even know about themselves. Some really great salespeople will say, by the time your customer asks you, it's too late. If they're asking you for something, that means that you haven't fulfilled their expectations, and you certainly won't amaze them. So how do you get to the point of amazement? Oh, apologize, I missed this. So we need to aim high, and ultimately, like I said before, we want to improve our position on the customer's value chain. To go from a transactional vendor, somebody that they simply buy something from, to that strategic partner, that joint venture partner, someone that they really know, love, and trust, and look to for advice and counsel within their business or maybe within other businesses. So that requires being elite. And elite starts with being engaged. When you're engaged, you're asking questions, you're building relationships, you're checking in above and beyond that transaction that's your product or service, right? This is really, really knowing your customers by name or knowing who they are by their profile, and checking in and treating them as if they are the #1 customer and they're the only one on the planet. You also have to listen. You have to listen to what they're saying above and beyond just doing a check-in. There's something different about a mechanical check-in that says, I'm just checking in to see how you are doing. Listen, and if they tell you something, write it down. Put it in your CRM. Figure out, like, if customers will share with you, my daughter is going to graduate from ASU at the end of the year, and we're really looking forward to that trip. How powerful is it for you to register a call to them, not to ask them if they need any more paper, not to ask them if they need new batteries for their fleet of golf carts, right? But to just call and say, hey, I wanted to check in and see, how's your daughter doing? Were you able to make it down south? Were you able to go to Arizona? That's the only reason for my call, right? Listening to them and following up with them is vitally important. That's a way that you can differentiate yourself. And this is a form of prospecting. I think one of the initial questions that was asked up front, prospecting doesn't always have to be a sales call. It doesn't always have to be, going and trying to find somebody who is currently in the market, right? But planting that seed that says, gosh, I remember when Mark called me and asked me about my daughter's visit to ASU. Amazingly powerful. And if you're going to send surveys, follow up on them. Whether it's positive or it's negative, the survey feedback, people fill those things out and oftentimes think they just go into the abyss somewhere. There's a clerk somewhere that's filing them somewhere. But even if you get positive feedback, right, calling them back and saying, I really appreciate you giving the positive feedback. I truly appreciate you taking the time. Thank you. And potentially, can I use this survey? Can I use this feedback as a testimonial? Right? Again, the testimonials could be a way of prospecting and an alternate way of engaging clients. Being inspired. Now, inspired is bi-directional. Share with your clients why you're in the business you're in. Share the driving forces that bring you to work and bring you into the profession or bring you to the service that you provide. And do that with passion. Right? But conversely, what inspires them? What shared values do you have? If you understand their why and you can draw a translation and draw a linkage between why they do what they do, what driving forces wake them up every day and bring them to their business, and what fuels the passion behind their business as to why they get up every day, making that emotional connection and having that bi-directional inspiration is going to bring you from, again, that transactional vendor to potentially a strategic partner. And then think. Now, I did get feedback on this particular line one time around finding yes. It was, well, finding yes. So what are you trying to say? That the customer is always right? That's not what I'm saying at all. And if you work with any of the FocalPoint coaches, we'll talk about, find your best customer, and maybe maybe there are some customers that you don't want, and maybe some customers that you don't want to say yes to. This finding yes really is about, if you work your way back up the elite chain here, if you understand their passion, their driving forces, if you understand what their business is all about, and they're coming to you and asking you a question that you don't have the answer to or you don't provide the service, find them an alternative. Find a way to say, yes, I can get you what you need, because they're coming to you for a reason. They're coming to you because you're a trusted asset to their business. And so it doesn't mean find a way to say yes and modify your portfolio. What it means is be that trusted advisor and go out to the market or share a referral or share a partner that can get them that yes or fulfill that need that they're asking you for. And then finally, be exceptional. If you go in with the ELIT in mind and you're spending time to figure out what are our joint driving forces, what do we have in common in terms of our whys, what feedback have I gotten, I'm calling in and checking in, I'm genuinely interested in the daughter that's going to the university, I'm checking in with you when things are good, I'm checking in with you when things are not so good, right? You're approaching that relationship with noble intentions and a positive attitude. And ultimately, that's what takes you from being that transactional vendor to that strategic partner. You're an extension of their team. You're an extension of their company. You're an extension of their wants, their desires, their needs, and you're fulfilling something far beyond what your individual transactional sale may mean. And so this, I believe, is what ultimately drives, that's the fuel that will feed the sales engine. And a lot of these points, a lot of what I just talked about, they're embedded in what Mark put around that wheel, right? If you have this type of mindset and you think about being elite as you walk around that circle, everyone's business is different, but you can come up with ways to set yourself apart from your competition and ultimately drive, clients that you may not have, or clients that are willing to walk away from their existing provider and come to you. And that brings me to the end. So any questions? Any input? Anything that people want to add and supplement here?
You covered a lot of content in a short time.
That is normally a full lunch and learn. I can spend an entire hour or more on that one. So yeah, that was tough.
Hi, this is Shanda.
Hey, Shanda.
As I was listening to you, I guess one thing that I think about when you're trying to be that, when you're trying to delight your customer, you're trying to be amazing, but then it's not reciprocated. So I guess that's my question. You reach out, whether it's text or a phone call or a message through, I don't know. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to reach out and stay connected and show interest in their lives, but then it's not reciprocated. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I'd love to hear others' thoughts, but my initial reaction is, if there's if they're not reciprocating, then you kind of have to do some inventory on what value do they have, right, to your business. Now, if this is, a multi-million-dollar client in a slightly more than multi-million-dollar portfolio, and they're the only one, you may be in a position where, the revenue is the deciding factor. But ultimately, right, in order for you to deliver your best service, you've got to have a connection. And if you don't have that connection, you may want to reconsider whether or not you should be spending the time to continually, push. If they're that transactional, then maybe they're going to continue to do business with you regardless of, that deeper connection or that deeper relationship. So I would say, take inventory of the value of that particular client and then make a conscious decision as to whether or not you want to continue to pursue it. Because there are some that just won't engage on that level, right? How about anyone else as far as, how to address the reciprocating?
Yeah, Dennis, it's Austin. I'd like to, this is in addition to what you stated, because I agree with what you said. But sometimes we have to look at relationships as just these small investments that we're making over a period of time. And so, Shanda, I absolutely get you. I've had a number of clients or prospects that look like exactly what you're talking about. But think about that outreach that you're doing, whether it's a text, an email, or whatever it is. Think of that as just one more investment in that relationship bank account. Think of it as your way of branding yourself, right? Because one of my favorite examples, I had an old sales manager, and she had pinged this guy, once a month or maybe twice a month for about 10 months, and he never responded. And and then when he finally did respond, guess what happened? He gave her a big order, and you know what he said? He said, "Hey, look, if she was this diligent when I wasn't her customer, how well will she take care of me when I become her customer?" And it was probably one of her biggest sales for that particular year. So I hear what Dennis says, and I totally agree. But don't think of it as wasted effort, because so think of yourself as an elite athlete. The people that are preparing for the Olympics. They some of them will practice 40 to 50 hours a week for a 10-second performance come the Olympics, right? And they'll spend 4 or 5 years doing that. So if you think of yourself as an elite athlete, and those things that you're doing, that outreach is practice, hopefully that'll help you, appreciate what you're doing, because you're about you getting better, and not you getting better, as opposed to these are the things that you're doing so your client will respond. So I'll shut up there. Thanks for answering that question.
And Shanda, if I could just throw in one thing, I think it's a great question, Shanda. And something, if you have an employee working for you that's not working out, then you have the question, do I get rid of that guy, or what do I do? And I always like to ask the question, why? So if somebody's not responding, why? Is it something I'm doing? Do I need to change my approach? Maybe they're just having a bad day. And so I think Dennis is right. Sometimes you gotta cut bait and move on. Austin's right. Hang in there, be persistent. And but I just like the question, why am I not getting through to them?
And I do realize that maybe I went a little bit negative by saying cut bait, right? So here's maybe an alternative. So can you find an influencer? Who are they engaging with?
Mm-hmm.
Who do you have in common? And can you build credibility and maybe come in through a back door through someone who they already know, love, and trust, and maybe build credibility leveraging someone else's relationship, right? So maybe do a little bit more homework and figure out, who are they talking to? You know, something maybe a little bit different, a little bit creative, but leverage other people's credibility in order to get in the door.
Got it. Thank you.
Of course, there can be a fine line between being outgoing and extroverted and being perceived as a stalker. So
True. Yeah, it's true, Art. Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Stay off the doorstep. Yes.
Don't be a stalker. That's great. Well, and so I would throw in big picture here, right? I would say, if you're not thinking about your vision, if you're not thinking about point B, if you're not thinking about where you want to take your business 5, 6, 7 years from now, as you think about how much time you want to spend nurturing that particular client or that particular behavior, you should be. You should be thinking about your vision. You should be thinking about what you want for your business 5 to 7 years from now. And yes, we've all said, well, I shouldn't speak for everyone. I've said yes to many clients because of revenue. And I've learned my lesson, and I've learned it well. So keep your vision in mind. You know, what are your values? Who is it that you want to pursue you to buy your product or service? That big picture is always out there, and all of the plans that you make and the things that you do are leading up to that vision.
Can I pose a question to Mark?
Go for it, Austin.
Yeah, Mark, I love the way you laid out that simple yet elegant sales process. Just curious, would you change anything if we were selling maybe a product as opposed to a service?
Oh, I think it's applicable to products and services. And just as we use the example of the doctor's doing the same thing, or whether you're selling widgets or insurance or water or whatever. And so that my thinking is it's a good process for either case. I throw that out to any other thoughts.
I guess it matters if it's a commodity type item. You might just be like a website company that just sells, a battery. So yeah, there's probably some differences between your battery, but it matters if it's just a AA battery. Maybe at that point you're just worried about volume. You're not really building a rapport with your client. You're just throwing it up on Amazon. But that's a different kind of business. But if you're like a unique battery, then maybe you have to go through the whole process. But if it's just a battery, that's all it is, I would think.
It is, and using that example with the Amazon, you're right, because you knew exactly what you wanted. I want a battery, so the understanding portion, the relationship is not there. And the one thing Amazon does, though, after the close, after you buy, you get that email, hey, it's on its way, and they're enhancing the relationship. And then, of course, anytime you're on the internet, things pop up, the ads pop up, trying to get you to buy again. And so that's a great point, Doug. Part of it's used, but not all of the process.
All right. So it is my job to get us out of here on time. Dennis, if you would pretty please put your contact information into the chat window so that if people have follow-up questions or would like to talk to you about your presentation today, please do so. It is, and it's 1 o'clock, and you guys are all amazing. Thank you for being here. I'm not going to hold you up. We hope that you ate your lunch or had your lunch, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you all for participating.